Hey copper nerds, I have made a discovery, which I don't know that I would say it's a new discovery, but it's certainly new to the general public, I guess, is that these Ron Landis engraved Gallery Mint Museum replicas are the basis for these cheap Chinese counterfeits. In other words, these are not counterfeit copies of 1794 large cents. These are counterfeit copies of Gallery Mint Museum replicas of 1794 large cents. Let's take a look at it. Let's get into it. So I just finished making a video and put it up today of this particular counterfeit that I've been trying to get my hands on an example of because it has this mushy letter reverse with a filled A, and I thought it was kind of cool. And then while making that video, I discovered that this is the exact same coin that I had done a review of before just based on photos. And it is literally the same coin as some of the staining on the surface of the coin itself lines up. So that was my first discovery when I was making the video about this one yesterday. And then I just kept looking at the hair details. I mean, they're wrong for a 1794 large cent, but they're like distinct and clearly had been hand engraved at some point. So while I was sitting there thinking about, you know, some Chinese die engraver putting together sort of a replica to be used for nefarious counterfeit purposes of a 1794 large cent, as I looked at those hair details, I realized that those are the exact same hair details that are present on the Gallery Mint Museum 1794 dies. And again, it's important to distinguish that the Gallery Mint stuff are not counterfeits, they are replicas, and they are stamped copy on each and every one. This one on the reverse, this nice red one on the obverse. This one has been sort of artificially toned. By the Gallery Mint folks. So then looking at the reverses, this one's a hot mess. This counterfeit does really not line up with much of anything, and the lettering's really ugly. But on this blacker sort of antiqued finished counterfeit that I picked up on Etsy, the reverse on that one is actually also a counterfeit copy of a Landis reverse. So I've talked about sort of the melted looking ribbon bow and tail details. That was lifted from the Ron Landis sort of tribute replica hand engraved design, not from an actual 1794 large cent. So again, what we have here is a counterfeit copy of a replica, which was not intended to accurately or actually convince anyone that it was a 1794. It is intended to be a tribute made by Ron Landis using old world technology, using hand engraving to engrave these dies, very much in the way that the US Mint did back in 1794. It has really nice edge lettering applied. This one has RL and GMM on the edge. That is for Ron Landis and Gallery Mint Museum. So that is the revelation that I have today, is that that these counterfeits are not counterfeit copies of 1794 large cents. They are counterfeit copies of Ron Landis replicas of a 1794, both obverse and on this one, reverse. Now, quick point of clarification. Both of these counterfeits are knockoffs of Ron's reverse. This one they did a much better job on. This one, they have some really mushy, ugly letters. They don't make any attempts to put the stars on the reverse as Ron did here and as this counterfeit does. But, you know, the ribbon tail shape, the general spacing of devices, also lifted from Ron's work, not from an authentic 1794. But I'm going to focus mostly on this black one where they did a much better job cleaning up that reverse from what was clearly a first earlier iteration. Now you'll see that this one on the reverse has a copy stamp on it because Ron always had that copy stamp either on the reverse or on the obverse. This one's in the hair. It would appear that this was the type of 1794 with the copy mark on the reverse that was used to create this counterfeit. Both the obverse dies, again, this one on a later die state, it's got a little die crack coming off of the cap. You'll note that when Ron did his reverses, he made them starred reverses. This one here does not have any evidence of stars on the reverse. This one does have some pretty crude little stars, which were put in place, again, copying the Landis dies. The biggest thing that you will notice is that where the copy stamp is on Ron's, we can see what that actual, this is the same die. So we can see what the leaf position looks like at the top there. On the counterfeit, there's this sort of stray stem or portion of a leaf or something. There's a stray engraving mark over the top of the area where copy would have been on the Gallery Mint coin that they used as the basis for their counterfeits. So something that I thought was interesting. Now, Ron Landis, he passed a month or two ago. So Ron is deceased. I reached out to one of Ron's friends who is also a die maker named Joe Panessa. And Dr. Joe mentioned to me that Ron had told him that the Chinese were counterfeiting his coins. And I'm sure this is what he was talking about. So Ron was aware of these counterfeits existing during his lifetime. I just haven't heard that discussed publicly, and I made this realization myself yesterday while doing editing on the video I made about this particular counterfeit. So I think what we'll do is I'm just going to take a bunch of photos, and I will have inserted some photos up to this point, but I'm going to go ahead and just do some zooms to show some of the similarities and differences and to really conclusively establish that these Chinese counterfeits are not based on a 1794 large cent. They are based on a Ron Landis engraved Gallery Mint Museum replica as their basis for their counterfeits, which is kind of a crazy discovery for me. It was not something I was expecting, but once you look at the way that Ron engraved the hair, again, not trying to make it look like a US 1794, but making his own take on what a 1794 would look like if he was the die engraver at the Mint back in 1794. That's what this is, and his distinct work is definitely being copied without authorization and counterfeited on these cheap Etsy Chinese knockoffs. Just the quality of the strike. I mean, look at the luster, this brilliant luster on the Gallery Mint, and then look at this garbage. And then this Gallery Mint, again, has had some sort of a patina applied to it. And then this one's counterfeit. You got the filled A, just a lot of kind of crappy lettering. And then for Landis, some nice letter punches. And then again, a counterfeit where they sort of cleaned up some stuff and they're clearly copying the reverse on the Landis example. And then, gosh, I just love this brilliant red lustrous replica from Gallery Mint. Crazy discovery though. This is just copies, counterfeits of copies instead of counterfeits of originals, which I think is wild. And again, for the outburst, just look at that luster, just blazing luster junk. Very well struck and patinaed junk. But look at our hair details. Just a dead ripoff of Ron's engraving work, which was not intended to look like a 1794. It is a tribute to a 1794. Clearly, Ron's intellectual property has been stolen for purposes of counterfeiting. And that was an interesting discovery. Thanks for checking this one out. Hit me up in the comments, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.